Hey guys, so I want to talk about an optical illusion we often encounter in tracking, wherein we're basically seeing footprints or paw prints in the ground that look like they're popping out at us, even though they're in fact impressed into the substrate. So our brain is basically interpreting them as convex instead of concave. And this often happens when tracks are photographed in a sedimentary substrate like sand, clay, or shallow powdery snow. It can also happen in direct sunlight and without much landscape context. So basically, it makes it difficult for us who are viewing the photograph to immediately discern the direction that the light is coming from. And so this happens a lot with our top-down photographs of tracks, which we like as trackers. And you'll see a lot in sort of forensic photography. We like that top-down perspective that gets rid of distortion, like forced perspective that comes with angled photographs. However, it also makes it more likely to see this inversion illusion. So I've been wanting to make a video about this for a while. I became more inspired recently when our friend Savannah Rose, who's an award-winning wildlife photographer and great tracker out of Wyoming, posted an amazing photo of a very fresh wolf bed in shallow snow, with the high amount of detail visible in the bed, such as the wolf's ribs, paws, and head. And so the photo caused some debate on her social media pages because some folks were interpreting it as a photo of a dead, buried wolf. And one person in particular was pretty outraged. And so at first I thought these folks were trolling her intentionally, which I guess they also could have been doing. But then I realized that what was definitely happening was what I'll call the embossed track illusion, which is a variant of the hollow face illusion, which is a famous illusion that's been known about and studied for several decades now. So the people who were really upset at this post of the wolf bed were basically perceiving this image to be representing convexity and not concavity. And you'll often see that if you are stuck in this illusion, you can often cause the illusion to dissipate by rotating a photograph 180 degrees or just rotating it. In real life, if we were there with the tracks in person, we would walk around the tracks and see them from a variety of angles, and our brain would soon get enough information to create more of a correct picture. So basically, the hollow face illusion, true to its name, is classically demonstrated with a photograph of a hollow concave mask. Usually it's like a plastic mask that's monochrome, like it's all white, it's all one color. And this very reliably results in us perceiving the concave mask as actually popping out at us. So basically, instead of perceiving the nose of the mask as being the farthest point away on this kind of micro topography of this face, we're perceiving it as being the closest thing to us, because usually noses are like the most distal portion of the face. So this is what that same mask looks like when it's actually protruding toward the viewer from the other side. And it's extremely hard to overcome the hollow face illusion. This is because we're hardwired to perceive and track human faces, which in evolutionary terms are basically the most complex 3D objects in our visual environments. So these illusions are based on several perceptual biases that many humans have. First is something called the convexity prior, is how I've heard it described. And this is our tendency to assume that a three-dimensional object is convex instead of concave in the absence of other perceptual data. And this has been studied in babies like of 6 months of age and adults, and we all generally have this convexity bias, basically. Another bias that can trigger this inversion illusion is the light from above bias, which is what it sounds like. Basically, our brain's making the automatic assumption that light in the form of the sun comes from above an object that we're perceiving. As terrestrial animals who rely on our vision heavily, the direction of light provides like a huge amount of orienting information to us. And so our ability to orient to direction of a light source becomes more challenging when we're perceiving a two-dimensional object like a photograph that shows a three-dimensional object like a footprint in the sand. So a lot of people regard this illusion pretty trivially. I mean, trackers know that it happens. Like it's pretty known in like the sort of track and sign community. But I think this illusion is of actually huge philosophical and scientific importance. I mean, for one thing, it concerns itself with a question of how we build a three-dimensional perception from the two-dimensional image received on our retina. And so that's basically, as scientists have pointed out, one of the central mysteries of vision. So, no big deal. Then, secondly, the hollow face illusion brings in questions about relationships between perception, familiarity, and knowledge. Um, for me personally, I definitely always fall for the hollow face illusion. I mean, human faces are like really hard to like not perceive as convex, because they are. um, but as I gain more familiarity with tracking, looking at footprints on the ground and paw prints, um, which in my work I see as a form of visual expertise, particularly with perception of complex three-dimensional objects, I stopped seeing like this embossed track illusion as much, and actually I basically can't see it anymore. Um, and so this kind of brings into question these issues of like familiarity and knowledge, and the fact that like as we gain more kind of memories and embodied experience of what tracks look like in substrates, um, we might have less and less of a chance to perceive this illusion. And so it's pretty interesting because it kind of flows into this modern notion of perception as being really largely predictive in nature. Like we're not just kind of these passively perceiving like information that comes in from the world. Um, like when we perceive something ambiguous, subconsciously our brain fills in what it believes is most likely. And we have a lot of prior experience with something, that information will flow into the prediction, which is also our conscious perception of reality. If we don't have a ton of prior experience, our brains kind of wing it and basically fall back on evolutionary defaults. And we can get some, pretty emotional about these perceptions and basically make outlandish claims or assumptions. And so this kind of gets into like the realm of conspiracy theories and kind of post-truth conversations. And so one example is, some people were skeptical of Buzz Aldrin's photograph of his footprint on the moon in moon dust, like this very famous beautiful black and white photograph of a human boot print in moon dust. And basically this picture for some people activates the hollow mask or the convexity prior illusion, because it's very high contrast. It's kind of like it's on another planet basically that we're not used to being on, and perceiving the substrate there with the light source that it's coming from. And so yeah, it like ticks all the boxes. And so some people see that, they see the track, it looks like the track is popping out of the substrate instead of impressed in the substrate. Maybe they'll say, oh, that's not real, that's fake, right? Another example is like, people who were kind of creating, wacky theories about Obama's birth and stuff. People were questioning the authenticity of a seal on Obama's birth certificate, because some people saw the seal as embossed and some people saw it as impressed. So that's the hollow face illusion. So it actually is really important for all of these reasons. And one tracker who I really admire, Jonah Evans, who's a wildlife biologist down in Texas, said once in an online presentation, "Be wary of the incredible." And it's some of the best tracking advice I've ever gotten, because it really gets at this very problem, which is the problem of our brains basically being prediction machines. And this is part of what makes us trackers, but it's also often what makes us wrong. And so just chew on that, and it's really helped me a lot. Pretty cool stuff. All right, thanks for tuning in.